Everybody has mouth noise, but after treatment for cancer in my left tonsil, the noise has been amplified. Trying to do voiceover following treatment has been a challenge, but I'm moving forward. In this video, I discuss the first noise, one I call Fuzz. I go into a little bit of detail about the changes to my sinuses, so this probably isn't for everybody. Alright, so I have samples from the last recording that I did, and these are the weird noises that I get. I'm calling them weird. I know where some of them come from. I know what causes them. I've come to the conclusion that when these occur, they have to be re-recorded. I have broken them down into categories. At the end of 2021, I moved over to a Mac Mini because when I was recording on my Windows machine, there were a lot of really strange noises and things that were being generated, some of them by the operating system. Even after optimizing everything and turning things off that needed to be turned off, Windows still had things running in the background that interfered with the audio recording. At the end of 2021, I moved over to a Mac Mini because I found out that Waves had M1 support for the processor. It's got 16 gigabytes of RAM. I forget how big the hard drive is. It's like the 500 gigabyte hard drive. Alright, so I have a collection of the strange noises and things, and I'm going to play those and describe them. A little bit of history. Cancer, 2020, tonsillectomy, 3.5 centimeter squamous cell carcinoma from the HPV virus. They removed that. That changed the architecture in the back of my throat. And that has created two things. The radiation created a dryness that I have to deal with that's created a lot of the noise. The other thing is that the arch in the back where my soft palate is, where the uvula is, and the velum in back of it has a different shape on the left side now. The tumor was so large, the tonsil was so large, that they actually had to take extra material out. So because of that, the sinus above the soft palate, whatever the normal clearance is on that, that has now pretty much vanished. And this is my take on it. I've had some discussions with some professionals about this, and they kind of disagree with some of the things. I think they were coming around to seeing what I was talking about a little bit later on, but we had a discussion. So anyway, long story short, as far as doing voiceover for anybody professionally or whatever, I am moving in that direction. But I've had two issues. One is enunciation, and the other is mouth noise. I'm dealing with mouth noise that a lot of other people deal with. Now, everybody deals with mouth noise, dry mouth, clicking, and things like that, the slushy, clicky, sticky stuff and everything. So that's normal. I have extra, which is really interesting. I do have partials that I wear. I had those for a while before I started actually recording stuff. And I started recording Bible study videos, and that's how I got into the idea of doing voiceover, because I really need to make some money at some point. As soon as I got started with that, then things started happening. I never had any health problems before, and all of a sudden I've got all kinds of problems. I've had 5 surgeries now since then. Most of them have had no effect on my voice. 2 of them have, or the radiation treatments have, and then the surgery has. The deal is that I moved away from the Windows machine to eliminate some of the noises, and some of them are gone. Some of them are not. Some of them are so bizarre, and I've tried to describe them to other people, and I don't have any real good way of describing them. So I am going to try to play some videos here that I did of these. I'm going to talk about them. And for the most part, I'm working with two things. I'm working with Alex DeWeese. He's been a big help, and I'm going to continue working with him. I'm working with RX9. I've done some experimentation with that. I have to get back with Alex for somebody who knows what they're doing in setting these things up. I've done okay on my own, but it's interesting. All right, so I'm working with RX9. I've also got my Waves plugins. I'm working on making sure that um, I'm enunciating and all those kinds of things. I'm taking other precautions and things. So my throat is dry. Because of the radiation and the dryness and the change in the sinus structure, I have a massive amount of fluid that continually runs and collects in the back of my sinus. As I'm talking, that will make noise or make its presence very well known, and that's going to be in some of these. The other part of that is that it continually drains into my bronchial tubes and throat. So I have that, and then I have the radiation dryness with that. So for the most part, cancer's gone, the radiation, most of it's healed up. The target areas in the back of my throat are still healing, and they're still very sensitive, so I have to really watch that. And those are the areas that I have to really work at to keep moist and everything. So a couple months ago, I was able to start recording again. In the last video that I did, in spite of precautions and everything, I had been sick. I had thought it was an allergy. Turns out it was COVID. So as soon as that started easing off, I had a script ready to go, and I went ahead and recorded it. It's one of the noisiest and worst recordings I've ever had. There was mouth noise, there was dryness, there was mucus. All those affected the enunciation problems. When I'm talking, it feels like I've got a lump in the top of the back of my throat. It has a tendency to gag me. So I have to really work very hard at enunciating things. So I'm getting better with that. I'm doing muscle exercises and things. So that's no big deal. But all of this translated into a file that I've spent a lot of time editing. And I recorded some videos. I'm going to play the videos back. In some sections of the video, I've actually amplified the problem so that it can be heard. The first problem that I have, and this one might be something that could be filtered out with a plug-in. I've had to do some re-recording with it, and I call it Fuzz. And that's your typical dry mouth noise that saliva is actually there and collecting and making noise, and just makes everything sound fuzzy. So I'm going to go ahead and play that first. This is the fuzz problem in Genesis 3:15. In Genesis 3:15. 3:15. 3:15. 3:15. Okay, so that particular thing right there that's just a very dry mouth with just enough saliva to create like a foam in the front of the mouth. And that may be a little bit gross, but if you're into voiceover, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So this is a problem that can be treated with, I keep fluids going all the time and everything. Because of the radiation, my mouth is not going to hydrate. So I have to use something to keep it lubricated. This problem cannot be taken out with the spectral view because there's just too much of it. So this is one of the sections that would have to be re-recorded. And hopefully by the time I re-record it, I would have enough moisture and be able to control the dryness. So 3:15, 3:15, 3:15, 3:15. And you could just hear the fuzz there with that recording and how that is really not something you want to listen to. So that's the first of the problems. That's physiology, and that's controllable through moisture and everything. So that's really not an abnormal problem.